Well, this is the Rogue initial kickoff. And I basically, what I want to do is I want to create a virtual group of people that essentially are working together, maybe on the same project or maybe on the same kind of task, whatever, for training purposes, for completing a project purposes, for whatever organic growth that it takes. So we're at a position right now where our BIM project is quickly falling apart. If you've been doing BIM coordination at all, you've all reached that point. That's where I feel we are. And what I want to do in the month of July is try to explain how we got here and how we can get out of here and still use some of this massive information that we've put together. We don't have to throw it all out. It's not all tainted, but by all means, it got off on the wrong foot like so many projects do. When instead of the fire protection being in Revit, the fire protection was in AutoCAD. And instead of the framing being in Revit, it was as well in AutoCAD. And they've fallen off task. And therefore, if one part of your BIM model is not there, BIM's not real successful. So what I want to do is, like I said, I want to use this month to do a couple things. Train some people, to get some people to be working on this project throughout the remainder of its duration. Try to look at unique ways and opportunities we have to use this data through a Deluxe model, which we'll end up getting into, so that we can still get a benefit and not just have everyone get mad like they're about to get about all the money that they've spent on this BIM for this project. Okay. So, one of the things that we're going to end up needing to speak to is building. If you look over my shoulder, I'm not even actually sharing the screen. I've got some kitchen equipment, and it gets a little bit washed out on the internet. The idea is for these new people, one of the things that we end up having to do is build a lot of information by submittals. So if by happen chance someone is watching this, and who knows, maybe it's not even someone that I'm seeing to train, but one of you guys that have stumbled across this video, I want to build these families. And what I'm willing to do, we sort of had some discussions. At the end of the day, I think you'll probably be looking at thank you for texting that. I appreciate you making my phone ding, my wife. What I want to do is I want to say I'm willing to pay $50 a family for the person who's able to generate the most families in 1 week. So it's sort of like a game. If you poured a half heart into it and you only do a couple, there's nothing going to be in it for you. But I want to have a challenge in one of the first 2 weeks of this to see who can put the most families together. And then what we'll end up doing is we'll end up reviewing those families together and teaching you how to build them better and working together as a group on how to get more better functioning families. Because it's very ironic. We're going to review a lot of videos on learning Revit. And there's one video that I'm watching right now that I'm going to ask people to watch, which is 7.5 hour video on how to master Revit. But ironically, in mastering Revit, they never even go into families. Families are so critical to a BIM coordination project. You can get away without them for a pretty long time, but eventually it's going to cause you problems. However, if you put the families in there, it's going to bring all of those players up to saying, oh, that's where the dishwasher's going. That can't work because I got to do blank. See, That's what we miss when all we do is look for interferences. So a BIM coordination that just looks for interferences, good luck. That's not what BIM is about. So that's what I'm hoping to try to show. That's where I'm trying to. I think that if we take this team that is building this rather large project and we sort of highlight and showcase how we can still give a lot of value, but it's not all about the interferences. Some interferences are definitely going to be problematic, but some interferences are very easy. Throw a couple elbows and get around the problem. We need to stop making mountains out of every molehill, and we need to see the bottom of the iceberg, because that's where most BIM jobs go. They see this little tiny thing and don't realize what's below the water. And the next thing, they're the Titanic on the bottom of the ocean. Okay. So, in the building of these families, Misty, if you wouldn't mind, I'm going to go to your screen. I'd like you to show Mike what's happening when you put those families in. See, because when we build these families, if they don't work correctly. So, Mike, when she brings in your family, go ahead and do your overwrite. It doesn't matter which one she does there. You built that family as just one hood, like there was two hoods there. We can't have that, because you see it's blown all of her dimensions and everything away, and it's not giving her a valid readout. We need to build that whole section. And if you drop the other one in there, Misty, too, and show them what's happening there, the other one is the 4 piece. When you drag it in there, see, it's changing all of that because you only built one. I know we talked about only building one, but you should have placed it 4 times, which means then your connectors were in the wrong file. So that's something that we're going to need to discuss tomorrow. However, it does look like the dishwasher worked good. So kudos on that. But those other two, we're going to need to refine them a little bit. And what we'll end up seeing is these families. It's absolutely critical that we get this stage so that it works, because this is where it begins to fall apart. Okay. Yep. I don't think there's going to be any problem with that whatsoever. I think that one worked great. What type of ceiling is that in that room, Misty? Is that an ACT if you look up at it? Yep. Okay, good. I just wanted to make sure, because if that's grease, that's connected to grease exhaust. I don't know why it would be grease exhaust. I guess it must have some level of grease, because it's a dishwasher going up in the steam. But I would imagine they're going to have to access that horizontal run. Now, I'm curious about that. When is the last time you uploaded the electrical in the electrical file? Can you see that on your my computer?
Yeah, definitely. Let's see what it says. So for electrical,
Should be electrical fabrication.
6.6.
6.6. Okay. That was the most up-to-date one. I will be downloading the new update, and hopefully we're not going to see that, because we all know they're going to move that little stuff. That's not very big conduit.
Yeah. Okay.
But at any rate, you're going to see that what we're going to be doing with this Rogue is we're going to be working some lifetime on a job. If you happen to be watching this, please post a comment if you'd like to help build these families, because I'm going to have a competition, and whoever wants to build and make some money, you could make some money on this project by simply building pieces of equipment from submittals. So please, I'd love for you to take me up on that. But my thought process on how I'm going to sort of start this off is I'm not going to pay everyone that builds something. I want to pay the person who goes out there and grabs this bull by the horns and draws like no one I've ever seen. Because to be quite honest with you, I'm trying to get out of this business. I would love to hand the work over to someone who's really anxious and would like to take it over. So, Tyler, Ginger, if you're watching this, please, Daniel, please be thinking about jumping on the next one so we can show you where to get these submittals. I will go back and check this to see if anyone's leaving me comments to see if anybody else would like to take a stab at this kind of work, and we could talk about it further offline. So that's number one. I want to put together this group of people where you can get a bunch of resources. I want to share the expertise in the years that we have, and we have a lot of years in BIM with the group that I'm starting out with. We've got some real exciting stuff. And the other thing I want to do is I want to review new technologies that are out there. So, and I apologize, I don't have a paid YouTube. So we're going to watch someone called the Revit Kid. I have a lot of respect for. I watched him really come on strong, probably in about 2009, 2010. And what he shows is something so amazing. It's about this introduction of AI and the Veris program. Hopefully, you probably maybe already watched it from him, but I want to show you that what we're trying to do is see new techniques and talk about how we're going to sort of change the industry to make it so that it works better for the people in the group. And if you're not aware, Rogue4, which is the company name, stands for Revit Online Group for User Evolution. That's what Rogue stands for. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to play this video, and Misty and I might talk a little bit over top of it. Might just be me. But if I think about how hard it was to do renderings not very long ago, it appears as though life could be really getting good and fun, because I recommend people do renderings, because when we see that stuff in 3D, it is very rewarding for us. Now, this Veris program, this seems really cool. So let's see if we can take a look at this. All right. So how about we unmute?
A tool called.
All right.
So about a year ago, I introduced you guys to a tool called Veris for Revit. In that video, I talked about how Veris was a great inspiration and idea starter in your design process. One of the issues that I've had with tools like Midjourney and DALL-E and even Veris a year ago is that you kind of didn't know what you were going to get. So they were great for inspiration, ideas, kickstarting.
I would totally agree with him. Last year, I wasn't that impressed. What he shows in this video impresses me.
And trying things out. But even when you tied them to your own renderings or image exports of your own drawings or models, the geometry retention of your design and the digital output is just not there. So if you've tried out Midjourney and DALL-E and even Veris and you were frustrated with the fact that you didn't really know what you were going to get, wait until you see what I'm going to show you today. So in today's video, I'm going to show you Project Veris a year later and some of the incredible features that have been added. So I'm going to go through 3 examples. One is an exterior, one is an interior, and one is an exterior with little to no materials applied of projects that I have, and show you the new features of Veris and how they're absolutely going to change the way that you render and design your projects.
And we're back. The team is looking down the barrel of a 4:55 meeting.
All right, too cheap.
So let's jump in. And the first project that I'm going to talk about is Rocky Mountain Modern. Some of you may recognize this project from my channel. This project, I'm going to do an exterior rendering and maybe an interior rendering. What's interesting about this project is this one has materials applied. What we're going to do here is we're going to use some of the new functions of Veris and show you that when you already have all of these textures applied to your model, how it actually is now essentially a rendering engine. It's actually incredible. And so what we're going to do is we're going to do an exterior set of renderings, AI generated renderings, and then we're going to do an interior set. So here I am in an elevation view. It's a 3D elevation. So this is a camera view. It's a 3D elevation. You can see I have textures already applied. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to launch Veras. Okay, now let's launch. So what you'll see is there's actually a couple new tabs on the top here. There's Explore, Compose, and Refine. Explore actually has a bunch of pre-built prompts in here, which is pretty cool. So you see it says modern design with large windows, etc. So if you don't even feel like typing in your own prompts, you can set your width and your height to match your scene. So I'm going to set my width and height to match it, and then you can click one of these and just let it go to town. We're not going to do that. We're going to go over to Compose, and I'm going to adjust my width to be as max as I can. I'm going to pull this back a little bit. Okay, so the first thing that I want you to notice is right here. Okay, this is actually the game changer. This slider that you see right here, the slider, it says geometry override. So we have the option to not maintain our existing geometry or maintain our existing geometry just by changing the slider. Okay, but
and that was a problem from last year. Last year, the AI was just sort of applying whatever it wanted to the rendering, and it was changing your actual design. So the reason he's so excited about that is because that really is a game changer. This really makes it so that you can do very, very quick renderings if you watch what he does next.
But then we're going to do a material override of 100. And I'm going to say turbo nature because it's exterior. So now I'm going to prompt. Okay, my prompt is going to be modern house, stone walls, timber joists, rocky mountain hillside.
And the fact that you can put the backdrop in my simple.
Okay, I'm going to actually pump out 3 of these renderings, and I'm going to keep the prompt strength to 60. Okay, so now you can see geometry override is 0, material override 100, the width, the height. I'm doing turbo nature, and then modern house, stone walls, timber joists, rocky mountain hillside. I'm going to click render. Okay, so in about 47 seconds, I have 3 renderings done. And what you'll notice as I flip through these is that pretty much my house is my house. The geometry retention, you look at even the structural supports over here, the wall, the windows, the mullions, it's all there. And all it's doing is changing the materiality and flipping through it. So it's iterating through a prompt, but it's maintaining your geometry. And, it's doing a pretty damn good job at it. If you look at this one right here, yeah, if you zoom in and look at some of the details, right, you're going to see that it's a stitched together.
Like here, there's a little bit of a problem. But if you look at all the work it did with the glass, that was just used to be 10 years ago, that was so difficult to do. This you could actually take, and more important, when he covers this refine tab, you're really going to be excited about it. So let it
AI image, but it's doing a pretty damn good job with reflections and shading and the windows and the materials and the scaling of the materials and recognizing all the architectural geometry of it. Pretty cool. So in 47 seconds, I had 3 completely unique renderings, maintaining my geometry, but playing with the materiality, with the feeling, the atmosphere, the ambiance of the scene to even further enhance my design process. So let's quickly run inside and do an interior. I'm going to show you another new feature that will blow your mind on the inside. So let's jump inside. I'm going to open up this master bedroom view. So again, we have textures already in this project. So we're kind of using this more as a rendering engine. Okay, because we already had this, I'm going to go click on the top here. I'm going to say show original image. And by clicking show original image, it's going to update the view. And so I'm going to change the height and the width of this now. So I got to sort of match what I have there. So you can see I want to crank up the height and the width. Let's get some of those walls in there. Okay, so 1660, whatever. So what we're going to do here is you can see I'm going to keep the geometry override at 0. I want to maintain my bedroom geometry. And I'm going to click is interior. I'm not going to use turbo nature. And then for my prompt, I'm going to say modern house, stone walls, timber joists. So similar prompt, rocky mountain, hill, side, outside. So I'm telling it that outside is a Rocky Mountain hillside. And I'm going to say golden hour for the sunlight. So golden hour. In case you guys didn't know, in Midjourney, DALL-E, and in Veras, golden hour is just like the perfect sunlight for pretty much every image. Like if you say golden hour, you're going to get beautiful lighting. It's just a thing. I don't know. Okay, so I'm going to do 3 renderings of that, and I'm going to click render.
Wow, I just built the most amazing workflow on Monday.com.
Kudos to you, Revit kid.
Why?
I want to at least say that you got some incredible stuff. I'm
At
impressed.
44 seconds, we have these 3 images. And you'll notice that they feel
Look at
different,
what it
but
did
not
with the
too different.
artwork in the background.
But you'll notice they're actually retaining a majority of the geometry, if not all of the geometry. Okay, so I'm just going to click through these so you can kind of see what's going on there. And I mean, look at the bed. They added nice textures there. I mean, it looks good. It's got a rendered feel to it. Notice how the lighting coming in the windows. It's got a background that looks pretty realistic. It's got this reflections and these lights that it's trying to put down and all that good stuff. So pretty cool, right? So what's the new feature? The new feature is now we've got this rendered image that we're playing with. And now I'm looking at this and I'm saying to myself, I want to play with some different ideas in the ceiling here. Okay. So instead of jumping into Revit, changing the material or re-rendering this whole thing and potentially adding a prompt that says like ceiling joist to be white or I don't know, whatever, I can click refine up here. And then there's this little pencil tool. And so what I can do now is I can draw an area of my image. So I'm going to go like this. I'm just going to highlight the ceiling for now. Okay. And then in the prompt, I'm going to change this to, let's say, all white painted ceiling. And for this, I'm only going to do 2. And interior is good. I'm going to click render selection. Okay, so now let me remove my selection, and you
That
can
one
see
looked
what it
pretty
did
funky. Got some
is
light leaks.
now it started playing with that ceiling and changing the materials based on a prompt. Okay, so let's see what else we can prompt with that. If I hit the pencil tool, now I'm going to select the bed and the nightstand here. I'm just going to do a quick highlight of that. If I wanted to, I could sit there and really refine the selection, but it does a pretty good job blending, so I'm not going to worry about it right now. Okay, so now I've selected the bed, and I'm going to say mid-century. So we're just going to say mid-century modern bed. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to change the geometry override to something like 60. So that we can say, okay, it's all right to change the geometry of this bed. I'm okay with that. Let's see what it does. And then I'm going to render 2 of those. All right, so if I remove the refinery, you can see now we're actually flipping through multiple different. Yeah, I'm flipping through the ceiling there.
Misty, did you catch that? The one bed, it has a lot of light underneath it. So it has problems with the light source whenever it does that refine. So that'll probably get better. But if you notice,
multiple
there was one,
bed
that one right
options
there, there's a
See
light
that?
underneath the bed.
So by modifying the geometry override, you can actually start playing with some of your actual geometry to play with ideas within it, which is pretty cool.
Who knows? Maybe
So
you
the
want to light
refine
under the
tool is
bed.
pretty sweet, right? So you have the ability now to almost render your scenes using AI in 40 seconds or so. You have the ability to iterate through different options and see how that looks. And then you have the ability to now refine certain areas to play with ideas. So it's this give and take of a rendering tool as well as an inspiration tool, and pretty powerful when you think about it. So that's with a project that has materials all set up. So you're giving the AI, you're giving the machine, right, a lot of direction when it comes to that, okay? And that's why you're getting more realistic renderings like that. And you're getting more of what you expect. I had stone, I had wood, I had metal, I had all of that applied. So it's really easy when you say, hey, stone exterior, wood cladding, rusted metal. The computer, the AI knows where to pick out those things. Okay, so let's say we're earlier in the design process and maybe we don't have all the textures applied, but maybe we have a general idea of a color scheme or something. So in this example, what I'm going to do is use a project where I don't have any textures applied. I just have shading applied. So just colors. And then we're going to see what this does. And we're going to use it as a rendering tool in that sense. So on this project, you could see it's a house. It's a decent model. It's got stuff, but this is probably more like schematic design. You'll see there's some ideas of materials, right? This is a white shake siding. This is a black vertical wood siding. This is a wood material here, right? So the idea is there, but none of these have textures yet. But you'll see here, I have enough to give the idea in my shaded views, which takes a lot less work because, as we all know, textures in Revit suck to apply. And so I just have the idea of it. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go to a view like this, which is kind of like the front view. I'm going to Veris, refresh my view, go to Compose. And what we're going to do is we're going to use this as a rendering engine, but we're going to use it to fill in those textures. So I'm just going to slide my height and my width to get it to something that I like.
Do the height and the width.
Bad. We're going to do geometry override all the way down. We're going to do turbo nature for exterior. And in here, what we're going to say is we're going to say modern farmhouse exterior architectural rendering, vertical black wood siding, horizontal white wood siding. So we're basically telling the machine now, when you see these colors, I want you to sort of input a texture for me. So it's gonna try to figure out what I'm trying to say here, okay? And then we'll say stained wood structure at front porch, and then we'll say dense forest background, and of course we'll do a little golden hour here because why not? For this one, I'm going to pump out 4, just because let's see as many as we can get.
Crazy.
And then we're just going to click run.
Introducing Milo's Rewards, the new way to unlock savings from the palm of your hand. With every purchase, all
right, so that took about 50 seconds, but it looks pretty cool. So I'm going to flip through the 4 options. So you can see here's one here. This one did a pretty good job. I'm not a huge fan of how it made this part white and this part wood, but you could see it retained most of the geometry, kind of trying to figure out in the corner here. But it also made this nice forest background, which feels really nice. And of course, you got your golden hour sun behind us or in front of us. This one, decent image. Again, I'm not sure what it did with the columns. I'm not sure why I made all the columns white. Maybe I should change the prompt there. And here too, it's doing some standing seam, which is kind of nice. Pretty modern farmhouse style sort of thing there. This one's probably my favorite. This is really cool. So you can see what it did here is it did a decent job figuring out the horizontal white, although it made this one vertical, the vertical black. It did all the wood. I love how it added this out of focus foreground.
So the AI is picking up a lot of that 3D stuff that was so difficult for us to do. So the moral of the story is, what I'd like to do is I'd like to look at their licensing structure a little bit more. I'd like to be creative. I really haven't even looked at the Veris yet. I want to go ahead and do that live so that we can see what it takes to find an add-in, how much it costs for the add-in. But for everyone who's going to be taking this class for the month, for any of you newcomers to Revit or BIM, one thing we're going to do is build some families. And then the second thing I'm going to do is I'm going to want you to build a piece of structure that you can then put in the Veris and get some fancy renderings for them. And they say that put that kind of stuff in your portfolio, they great. My thinking is if we can teach you how to build a house and build the families that go inside the house, from there, if you apply yourself, you could easily get yourself into a BIM coordination position right now, because quite frankly, the industry's pretty messed up. But I would imagine this stuff is going to start to fall into place in no time at all. So, that being said, I hope you're going to join me in the month of July. Right now, this is still being done under your BIM. I'm hoping, Tyler, if you get a chance to watch this, I'm ready to get you to help me with how we're going to put this up, whether we're going to LinkedIn and whether we're going to Twitch, what exactly we're going to do. But I want to be available to answer the questions in the field on this active job, this casino job. And at the same time, I want to run a training session that can get people that want to learn Revit up to speed. And I will tell you, for the Century people, that I've already laid the groundwork. Century is very happy of the idea of getting new people into the BIM department. Don't miss the bus. It's not going to hang around for long. So hopefully, I know this is the 4th of July weekend. I really wasn't planning on doing this till after the 4th of July. And quite frankly, I really wanted to actually put the computer down for a little bit and do construction. But fortunately for everyone, it's so hot out there. I don't even think I want to go out and work in the field for a little bit, which is one of the nice things about a BIM job. You're in the air conditioning in a nicer environment. And if that's what you want, I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to the month of July. I'm looking forward to bringing up videos. That one there was showcasing a new technology, which typically I'm not going to do a whole heck of a lot of. What I'd rather do is review people that are actually doing training and stuff like that and try to show you where, and this includes me, even the best of people out there sometimes don't do things the best ways. That's why I think it's more important that we get together as a group so that we can refine this actual process of what is the best operating procedure. How is the best way to handle this? I only want positive attitudes. Number one. Number two, I'd like you to try to share your camera as much as you can. I understand if you're modest and you don't want to share your camera. I just think it's going to make the whole mission of Rogue a little bit easier if we're on that personal level. And number three, when you get on to a session, if you're not just watching this from YouTube, but you actually are coming into my session, I'd like for you to share your screen, because eventually you're going to be asking me a question and I'm going to want to look at what you're seeing on your screen so I can quickly resolve your problem and help you get to a solution. Because that's where I think the real power of this Revit Online group for User Revolution comes from. The fact that you can have 5 people or 6 people looking at your screen and helping you get over the hurdle that you're faced with right now. Because I know in the, almost 20 years that I've been using Revit, the most frustrating time is when you're sitting there banging your head on that computer and you really just wish you had someone that you could ask that question to. And that's not always going to be the case. If you're in a small company that's only got 1 or 2 or 3 BIM users, you may not have anyone to ask those questions. If you go ask an engineer, they're going to glaze over and be like, I've never used Revit. People are in those positions. The intention of this streaming sessions is going to be to give us all an opportunity to help each other out. That's both help each other out to solve the problems that we're faced with, but possibly also either to get or to give work to. So I'm hoping that someone might see this and say, hey, we'd love to get these people to draw something for us, or vice versa. Maybe you're getting work, or maybe you're actually sharing work. Because if you've ever been on a real large BIM job, you know the scariest day is when they come and they dump 500 submittals on your desk and you have to build all those families. And it's just not possible when no one understands that. And then they try to help you out by saying, oh, we've got the vendor model. And we're going to quickly talk about the problems with a vendor model. I've even created vendor models. I've made the exact same mistakes that I'm going to complain about when I was making those vendor models. We're going to try to get quicker and quicker at building these families, because I can tell you right now, if you can survive at $50 a family, you probably will end up for quality families, which is going to take a little bit. I'd really like to see you getting paid more like $100 a family. And if you do the math, if there's 500, 600 families that need to be built, that's a fair amount of change that you could make. So I do know that that occurs, and I know that that would make the projects much better if all of those families could be built to submittal. And I also know, to an extent, on this particular project, so much more should have been built in the families. But unfortunately, it would be what would be called gap modeling. It's sort of modeling objects that aren't any one discipline's responsibility, which usually is supposed to be the responsibility of the general contractor. And right there, a lot of times it'll fall through the cracks. And believe me, you're gonna see real quick, because understand that my vision is I want to do this training during the daytime so that the people on the construction site can come in at any time, and if they have a question for us on the job, we can quickly help them with their job task and then get back to our training. So if you're watching the training, you might need to skip some of that, or you may actually want to see what happens, because to me, that's sort of like when the machine guns go off. When the people in the field start yelling at you and they start freaking out, and the general contractor's getting the attitude, that's when it gets a little bit stressful. And it'd be good for you to see what kind of stresses and how you can handle that. But what I'm planning on doing is essentially teaching Revit from the ground up. So we will probably start that officially after the 4th of July, and we will be wrapped up by the end of July. And if now's not the time, maybe you come back and watch these videos at another time. But that's what my hope is for the month of July. I look forward to working with all you guys. Like I said, if there's anyone out there who wants to build some families, please give me some kind of information through the chat. I haven't exactly figured out how the communication path, if you haven't figured out, there's a lot I haven't figured out about how this is supposed to run. But this month, I am going to try to figure out how this can run and be successful in all these facets. So if you made it this far, what are we at? Probably a little over a half hour. I thought I saw it somewhere. Oh yeah, 38 minutes. We're at 40 minutes. Some of these sessions I'm hoping to have 8 hours, because I'm hoping that we could be in a position where if we're on during the daytime, maybe we get known well enough that people come to us, ask a quick question, and then leave. I don't know exactly how it's going to pan out, but I'm excited to see what July is going to bring for us. So I hope you guys all have a good week this week, and I'll be back probably putting a session up. If not tomorrow, it'll definitely be on Tuesday. Thank you for joining me, and I look forward to this month. You guys have a great time.